to be with you and Ashley and Avon, the rest of the gang. You guys have a great show going, and it's always a pleasure to be on with you. So thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Pleasure to have you as well. And everybody, it's now time for you to go to the post tab over on YouTube at youtube.com/The Damage Report, where you can vote for the garbage person of the week, as well as the hero of the week. Brett Ehrlich is going to be joining me tomorrow. I've got an awesome garbage person already planned, so it should be a lot of fun. For now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
indisputable. I'm your host, Shad Richey. Good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day. None other than Mr. Elliot Morgan. Always fascinating to have his brilliant analysis. Make sure you catch him on the network. He will be joining us once a week. Very proud to have him part of the team. All right, top story of the day. A cop, so well trained, says he actually made a mistake. There was a taser that he believed sounded like gunfire. He shot a black man 15 times. Here it is.
And go towards the north.
Columbus police!
Shut down. When somebody shut down, somebody shut down.
Put your hands up! Hands up! I can't tell. Back up! Hands up! Hands up! Hands up! Put your hands up! Columbus police, put your hands up! Drop the weapon! Is that a gun? Crossfire, we're down here. Shots fired. Move up.
Put up the picture for a mass. Mr. Antoine Lindsay, 45 years of age. The family of a man who was shot more than a dozen times by police, they have now filed a lawsuit claiming that law enforcement fatally shot him as he was actually surrendering himself and complying with their orders. Mr. Antoine Lindsay died on July 8th, 2023. He was shot 15 times by police officers in an apartment building in Columbus, Ohio. So let me give you the background of how the incident began. The authorities said the incident started when a man approached a Franklin County Sheriff's deputy working special duty at a Walgreens and reported that Lindsay had a gun at a nearby apartment building and was making threats. Police later learned after the shooting that Lindsay was upset because he thought someone had stolen his car when it had been towed. So far, you have an individual who is authentically upset. There's a communication, just as many of us would communicate. Car's gone. You don't have all the details. There's a cop. You're expressing your frustration. It's easy to understand this. There's nothing complex about this story so far. Lindsay's sister filed a federal suit against the city and its police department for excessive force, supervisory negligence, and systemic failures. That's according to local reports. So the deputy called Columbus police to respond to the man's report. Wait a minute. The deputy called Columbus police. The sheriff's deputy called the local police department to respond to the man's report. Body cam footage also shows him driving to the apartment building where Lindsay is visible. When he pulls up, gunshots ring out. Police approach Lindsay from both the hallway and on his right and the stairwell on his left, okay? They surrounded him. That's according to the lawsuit. Officers on both sides ordered Lindsay to put his hands up and not move. The suit states that Lindsay had put his gun on the ground and his arms raised, chin high, and stood motionless at the door. Now, body cam video shows him standing still in the doorframe as officers from the stairwell and hallway yell commands. Suddenly, an officer from the stairwell can be heard yelling, "Taser, taser, taser." Now, what does that mean? That means, based on the training of law enforcement, that the cop is going to deploy. Put it at full mast again. The cop says this because every jurisdiction is trained in taser certification to yell taser 3 times so that law enforcement will know it is not a gun. That's the entire reason they are trained and can only be certified to hold a taser if they understand what needs to be said prior to firing. Taser, taser, taser. Oh. The complaint states that when the cop tased Lindsay, the device made a loud popping noise as it struck him. Well, it's electricity. When he started falling to the ground, the 4 officers in the hallway opened fire, shooting a total of 38 rounds at him. An autopsy revealed Lindsay was shot 15 times in the head, the upper chest, arm, thigh, and back. There's no ambiguity about this. This is called a fact pattern. Everything that's in this article is a statement of fact. An officer yells, taser, 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 taser. Cops hear a popping noise and decide to shoot. Now, it is interesting. I wonder, did the officers ever believe, well, you know, if we could not hear properly from where we were, maybe us yelling at him at the same time, he may not have heard properly either, but he still properly complied with making sure no one was at risk. Nearly a year after that shooting, Franklin County grand jury declined to indict the officers involved in the shooting. A release from the county prosecutor's office stated the officers thought they heard gunfire and shot Lindsay as a result. Several of the officers who shot Lindsay told investigators they thought the sound from the taser was a gunshot. So after reviewing the body cam footage, this is a quote, "It appears that the suspect had dropped or placed his weapon on the ground on the other side of the door. I could not see that from my position in the hallway. It also appears that what I believed was a gunshot immediately before discharging my weapon was the pop of the taser being deployed," one officer wrote in a statement per the Columbus Dispatch. On the footage, quote, "On the footage, I can hear officers yell, 'Taser, taser.' But during this incident, I did not hear the taser announcement." What? Wait a minute. The officer says, you know, when you look at the video, I can clearly hear taser, taser, taser. But for some reason, in the moment, I heard none of that. This is that subjective statutory framework where officers are allowed to basically operate in a way outside of an objective review of standard or responsibility. In other words, if you or I would have did it, we go to jail. Okay? Because a reasonable person would not have done that. Because we use an objective standard when weighing everyone else. But when it comes to officers, they get to weigh statutorily a subjective standard, meaning as long as they believe what they're saying, even if it sounds quite ridiculous, even if it's on video, that clearly you're not telling the truth because we know you hear taser, taser, taser. It's on the video. It's on your body cam. There's more. The family's lawsuit claims Lindsay posed no threat. He did not. Posed no threat to the officers who shot him, and reportedly included a still image from one officer's body camera that showed Lindsay's hands raised and what appears to be a gun at his feet. The use of lethal force on Mr. Lindsay, who had surrendered and was incapacitated at the time of the deployment of the taser when he did not pose a serious threat or harm to any person, end quote. The family said in a lawsuit that's according to WSYX, the complaint seeks $75,000 in damages and a court order mandating reforms to Columbus police policies and training procedures. I know some people are going to say that number is woefully low. It is low. This is usually a strategy by the civil attorney, because that number, 75,000, kicks it out of your local court system because of the amount. And likely they will reform or refile that motion. All right, hell of a thing, man. This you don't get more innocent, dear brother, than being authentically upset over a car being here and all of a sudden it has disappeared. You talking to a law enforcement officer about your frustration, and then all of a sudden the cop makes you the criminal and sends cops to your house or to your domicile and open fire on you without you posing a threat at all.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Dr. Ritchie. When you see videos like this, I think there's just so many emotions that pop up. It makes you feel powerless and also angry, especially when these things always tend to follow the same plot points every time. I know this is probably the first time I've heard of it being the sound of a taser that initiates this kind of action. But there has been instances of confusion where the taser and the gun gets mixed up. So I think calling for more training is not a bad thing from any perspective politically. Also, I'm really curious about this game of telephone that happened between someone reporting something, they see something, they say something. What happened when that deputy or whoever it was at the Walgreens on duty called the sheriffs, and what kind of image did they have going into this situation? I think it's pretty terrible. So I think that this is a systemic failure, and I think it goes to show that this is still a very real problem.
And I think what you just brought up is the genesis of why this all happened. And that's why it's not on the report.
Yeah.
All right. Hell of a thing. Ms. Nome says she's grateful for God's hand in killing people in Texas. Here it is.
Matters a lot. I'm extremely grateful for God's hand in that whole situation, because hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were saved. And this is a time for all of us in this country to remember that we were created to serve each other. Yeah. God created us to take care of each other. And that when we do that, we are happier, we are more fulfilled, and we can walk alongside people on their worst day and help them get through it and come out the other side, knowing that we can continue to live a life that God has purposed for us. So they're grateful for you. Several times the day after the flooding, you and Melania were on the phone with me, and I want to thank you for that. That meant the world. I was able to tell many of those folks that I had been visiting with you.
Put a full mass. So you're thankful for God's hand, grateful for God's hand. You know, the families of 110 dead people would have been thankful for a better damn policy. They would have been thankful for preventative measures. They would have been thankful for a proper warning. They would have been thankful for God to show up in the policies that you all execute daily. Christy Nome says she's grateful for God's hand in the devastating Texas flood, the flooding that now has left over 100 dead and still counting. Social media was quick to call out the Secretary's remarks, quote, "How did God choose the people who survived?" Another act, "Wow, it's all okay because hundreds weren't killed?" Still another observed. Quote, "That's like saying, think about all the planes that landed after a horrific plane crash," one person wrote. So I'm going to give you a reminder. Trump spent the first months of his presidency gutting federal agencies laying off thousands of federal workers, including FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the National Weather Service. FEMA's been deployed, and we're cutting through the paperwork of the old FEMA, streamlining it much like our vision of how FEMA should operate. And there's been a much better response to help these families get through this terrible situation, according to the lie that Secretary Noem said, pandering to Trump, obviously. So somehow less people, less expertise, less money, less budget equals better service. Kerr County authorities. Kerr County authorities discussed warning systems at least 20 times since 1987. That's officially on record, which means they've done a lot more off record. Since 2016, the topic of a, quote, flood warning system from Kerr County has come up 20 different times, 20 different county commissioner meetings, according to the minutes on record. The idea for a system was first introduced by County Commissioner Thomas Moser and Emergency Management Coordinator Doug Thomas. This happened March 2016. These are local people on the ground that actually know what folk who they care about need. So Moser noted that neighboring counties had much more advanced flood warning systems than their county. Quote, even though this is probably one of the highest flood-prone regions in the entire state, Kerr County's existing water monitoring mechanisms were not, quote, flood control or flood warning systems. Policy failure. Thomas explained, adding, quote, I think we need a system that can be operated or controlled by a centralized location. Policy failure. Following the March 2016 meeting, the flood warning system was discussed 10 more times at 10 more commission meetings that year. But after the county failed to secure FEMA grant funding, budget policy issue to implement the system, it appeared to fall off the agenda. In a November 2020 discussion of a new FEMA emergency alert program, Thomas noted, quote, we've been trying to get a new flood warning system here. We haven't been able to do it, end quote. Noem claims 1 in 6 survivors of the wildfires had to trade sexual favors for supplies. Yep. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem on Wednesday suggested that FEMA's response to the 2023 wildfires was so poor that 1 in 6 survivors had to trade sexual favors in exchange for basic supplies, a reference to a report on female Filipino fire survivors that one of the authors says is actually a gross manipulation of their work. In response to Politico's question about where the statistic came from, DHS sent a May press release containing a link to the report. The study, conducted by Tagnawa, which describes itself as a Filipino feminist disaster response organization based on Hawaii, surveyed 70 female Filipino fire survivors and found that 16% of those surveyed, roughly 1 in 6, engaged in, quote, survival sex in exchange for basic necessities post-disaster. Now, one of the authors of that report told Politico that the administration's reading of the data was just a misinterpretation. One Hawaiian activist responded with this statement, I'm from West Maui. This is my hometown. That's a blatant lie. Every single person I know was either homeless, jobless, or both. No one was driven to such extremes. In fact, in short order, FEMA was on the ground helping people. I was on this platform talking to my governor. So according to the basic narrative on this line, the administration says, oh, yeah, this was FEMA doing it, when the survey was highlighting a socioeconomic dysfunction. All of a sudden, Noem is concerned about these folk if she can blame FEMA, but would not give a damn about these individuals, not in word or mention in memory, until it serves some type of political purpose. They're playing games with you, every single one of them. These individuals, unfortunately, have died because of, once again, bad policy. All right, dear brother, thoughts here?
Dr. Ritchie, I had my parents lose their home last year in a hurricane. It was a very scary time. I'm not trying to draw like a one-to-one line here between what happened to them and what happened, the tragedy in Texas. However, there is something to be said, I think, for after these kinds of events when people come together as a community. And I do think there's something really beautiful about it. And I understand the idea of being like, hey, this is an example of God's love in that context. However, I think what Christine Nome does here is what I think of as Mad Libs Christianity, where they kind of know that if they say God and then they fill in the blank with something, it's going to get them political points. And I think sometimes they slip up. And that's what happened here. And it goes to show that I think that kind of language is being used in a very maybe cynical or manipulative way in order to kind of ingratiate themselves with their own demographic. As for the study, it is very clearly like these studies are take pains to delineate exactly what they're doing and what they're studying, and because they don't want their stuff to be misinterpreted or for their conclusions to be misrepresented. And the conclusion of this study was that there needs to be more funding and there needs to be more attention put on this so that less discrimination happens in the future. To take that same study and then prop it up as reason to defund FEMA is completely antithetical to what the study was about. And I think that's got to be frustrating on multiple levels. But this was a survey done with a subset of a population of 70 people. And to take that and amplify it to the entire population is just completely misguided.
Yeah, and to your point about the God reference, typically if a person is in charge and there's a failure based on their decision making and they say, well, but God, it's because they don't want to talk about but policy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right, we'll bring you updates as it develops. Hell of a thing, conservatives turned on Trump, Alex Jones, crying. Candace Owens, gotta admit, I gave her a heart. I cannot believe this is happening. I am in agreement with Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and yes, Megyn Kelly. All right, here it is.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah.
This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
Yeah, we are.
Good grief. That was no bueno, guys. That was no bueno. Okay. President Trump had the same problem there that Caroline Leavitt had yesterday. The dodge should not be obvious.
What is most compelling to me, by the way, about the Trump filibuster is that it requires us to be so gaslit that we completely forget that nobody made more of a show of the Jeffrey Epstein files and the release of those files than the person sitting to the right of him, Pam Bondi. That's why we're here. Pam Bondi was the one who notoriously handed out binders to a bunch of online influencers on February 27th.
These things always come across and then they just disappear. And it's very frustrating for the American people. Epstein. Yeah, I mean, I just said Epstein. It's like, where did this guy go? Where did that whole case go? Where did all the files go? They just went nowhere? No one even believes that.
So now by coming in and being part of the cover-up, the Trump administration has become part of it. I mean, it's just, you cannot see it any other way. So I just got to the office. I'm going to go throw up, actually. And this only happens every few years when something really, really bad happens or something. I mean, I'm physically going to puke probably right now. My mouth is watering right now. It's because I have integrity.
That's right. Alex Jones and the Middle Earth people have integrity. All right, man. Put it up for me. I just can't believe this is happening. Now, for Democrats, usually we're able to really make a contrast point from these individuals. However, their higher selves have arrived. And it took the Epstein thing to get it there. To Democrats, please, for the love of all things sacred, don't talk about nothing else but this to MAGA. Nothing else. Don't say anything about money. Don't say anything about healthcare. Talk about this. Why? Because this is what they care about. We found it. We didn't find it, they did. Actually, Trump found it for us. Please stay on this to MAGA. Whatever you got to do. This is your winner here. I know it's not the most buttoned up topic. And it's rooted in the conspiracy theory, but hell, even we knew something wasn't right about the Epstein story, right? Stay there. So conservative media figures have voiced their anger. They are all in unison. Roseanne Barr says, Mr. President, yes, we still care about Epstein. Is there a time to not care about child sex trafficking? Read the damn room. Read the room. That's why he's there. Alex, he's not all of a sudden part of the cover-up. Do you really think he just got there and said, I'm going to be part of a cover-up? Maybe he was part of something else prior to him being part of the presidential aspect of the cover-up. Never thought of that. You really think Trump is protecting somebody? What has Trump protected anybody but his damn self? And yeah, we can go down conspiracy lane here about intelligence agencies and foreign government, but we know the character of Trump is not one of integrity. Whatever his reason is not righteous. So it's not just public figures who are turning on Trump because of this.
I'm a Trump supporter, and I'm going to tell you this right now. If this is the verdict, there's no Epstein client list, then all of us that have installed Bongino and Cash Patel, the whole Trump administration, period, all they talked about was transparency. If we don't get accountability for the thousands of victims that were abused, who knows what type of crimes we're talking, then I'm jumping ship. And all of you should as well.
We're not buying what you're selling. We watched the FBI pull out all these things from Epstein Island. We know that Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison right now for trafficking, okay? And the connections with her family to the Mossad needs to be talked about. We have questions.
This is all going in the trash. I do not support Trump anymore. He's a liar. He's a part of the deep state. I do not support Israel. I will not be supporting him anymore. He's part of the deep state.
Fascinating, is it not? Trump been lying. As a matter of fact, it's hard for me to figure out when he has told the truth. But it took this type of delineation from a proclamation made on a campaign trail to the reality of presentation from the Trump administration. Trump basically told them folks, Epstein who? We still talking about him? Why? Let's move on. There's nothing there. There's literally, according to Trump, there's literally less evidence now than prior to Trump being president in reference to Epstein. Like at one point, there was a client list according to the Attorney General. At this point, that doesn't even exist. Hell, at some point, maybe even Epstein really didn't exist. It was all a cover or something. So Flashpoint is a Sunday night memo from the Department of Justice, which concluded that Epstein died by suicide and confirmed there was no, quote, client list, even though the AG said there was and passed out fake binders saying it was, of powerful figures to be exposed for violating underage girls. This conclusion came as a shock to conspiracy theorists who had long believed Trump would deliver a long-promised justice and transparency on the matter. We know this is bogus. Hell, Epstein got some kind of sweetheart deal when he was arrested, charged in Florida for doing the same thing. The prosecutor at that time said he had never received such a phone call in his life to let something like this go. Went on record about it. Guess who he worked for? Trump won. Some of the loudest voices fueling those expectations are now members of the Trump administration, including Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino. All three have been regulars on Fox News. Bongino even as a host. During a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, Bondi made headlines by walking back previous comments made on Fox News in which she claimed the, quote, client list was sitting on her desk. She clarified that she had meant that the case files were available for review. Yes. That's a big mess up, Attorney General. And went on to shift her story, saying the thousands of videos in evidence weren't recordings of abuse, but merely child stuff that Epstein downloaded. Really, nobody said this until now. It is interesting. So let's get this straight. The most unqualified human beings to ever hold those positions happen to also have one other thing in common. They were hardcore, release the Epstein file. And they had credibility within the MAGA movement. So their qualification seems to potentially be the fact that they all had this particular brand connected to this case. And then in unison, all of a sudden, they are saying the same chorus. Just something to think about. So, QAnon, they're back. QAnon influence, wing of the MAGA movement, has been furious. You see, these individuals are true believers. Are they authentically wrong? Yes, but they happen to be authentic in their wrongness. So the QAnon influenced part of MAGA has been furious over the lack of transparency and the shifting explanations. Frustration was palpable, though measured, in this surprising Fox News segment, which delivered uncharacteristically harsh criticism of the Trump administration. Coming from such loyalists, the rebuke marked a significant pivot. Quote, President Trump and his AG hoped that they had put an end to the Epstein story, end quote. Ingram said after airing clips of Bondi, Patel, and Trump discussing the case and what she described as an inconsistent manner. Here it is.
There's a moment where you had some hesitation about Epstein, releasing some of the documents on Epstein. Why the hesitation?
I don't think I'm not involved. I never went to his island, fortunately. But a lot of people did.
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list. You don't think that Bill Gates is lobbying Congress night and day to prevent the disclosure of that list? And why is it that the Senate, and good for Senator Blackburn to try to get it out, but then Dick Durbin comes over the top and says, no, we're not going to release the names. I don't care about the list itself, but if release the names, right?
And I've said it, Dan Bongino said it, we've reviewed all the information and the American public is going to get as much as we can release. He killed himself. Do you think, let's play out the logical conclusion of this. Do you think that myself, Bongino, and others would participate in hiding information about Epstein's grotesque activities? Or do you think we would also participate in not prosecuting people we had evidence to prosecute people on? Where's the videotape of an Epstein Island of X, Y, and Z committing these frauds? Why haven't you given it to us? Do you really think I wouldn't give that to you if it existed?
I think that anyone who works for Donald Trump lacks integrity, and Trump knows that. I think that you all are twisting yourselves like a pretzel to not consider things like this.
So how do you know this?
Footage from 1992 found in the NBC archives shows the future president welcoming Jeffrey Epstein to his Mar-a-Lago estate. The get-together more than a decade before Epstein pleaded guilty to prostitution charges in Florida. Both men are seen enjoying themselves, Trump pointing out women dancing in front of them. An apparently friendly encounter with a man the president is now looking to distance himself from.
He was quoted in 2002 saying in New York Magazine, "I've known Jeff for 15 years. terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side, which is just creepy in so many different ways.
There you have it. Your decision to make. All right, Elliot, thoughts, dear brother?
I have to say there's a lot of dark stuff going on in the world right now, both here and abroad. But if you were to ask me to list out the funniest things this administration has ever done, it would not be a long list, but this would definitely be on it. I do think that if you spend a lot of years courting a particularly conspiratorial group of people, you have to continue playing that game. Otherwise, it's going to bite you in the end. And I think this is not going as well as maybe they thought it would. And also, I'm fascinated by conspiracy theories. I'm fascinated by the sincere belief in them that a growing number of people tend to have. And one particular quality about conspiracy theories is that they always have some element of unfalsifiability. So if like you imagine the UFOs, then it could always be in some bunker somewhere that no one knows about yet. So there's always like the carrot in front of the stick that you can kind of keep walking toward. Going out and saying, no, this didn't exist. It has never existed. And also saying, why are you still asking about it, is probably the worst thing you could possibly say to a group of people. I also think that there is something wrong. There is something conspiratorial going on here. And I think it is okay to call that out, especially because it's one of the few things right now that people on both sides of the political aisle can be like, yeah, there's something really weird about this.
Yeah, very well said. We'll bring you updates as they develop, guaranteed to do so. Once again, Democrats, don't blow this one. All right, we got more on the other side. Indisputable. Stick and stay. Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier, and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either. All right, welcome back. Always good to be with you. We got some comments. I'll read as many as I can. Sarah Caldwell, welcome to Indisputable. Thank you so much, Sarah. Meeting Place, welcome to Indisputable. Thank you. And Donald James X, member for 36 months. Welcome back, Doc. Cheers to 36 months. Beautiful. Day one. Thank you, man. And Early Bird 42, the cop that shot black men 50 times, that was too much. Officers, damn. I agree. I think Devil Bear Hawk Turian, thank you for that. Greatly appreciate you. No one's praise Trump is puppet. That's right. 74777. Thank you for that. The families that lost loved ones deserve accountability and transparency from that public servant. That is correct. There you go. That's right. Claudio Aguil, Devil Dog Dragon says Doc has agreed with those Trumpers. Someone get a thermometer. I think Doc has a fever. Nope. Likely hell is frozen over. That's all. All right. Got something for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Mexico, mother. It's illegal to have a Mexican flag and not an American one. I'm calling ICE. Watch, bitches. This is America.
Karen, what's illegal are all of those damn traffic violations you're committing while talking about something that's completely legal. Put it up for a mask. This is your brain on Trump. Now we have gone from a freedom to express your religious independence or lack thereof. No religion is required. Your freedom to express a symbol. Hell, you have the freedom to express hate symbols in America. But a Mexican flag is illegal. The hell? All right. So Karen drives by, harasses a person over their Mexican flag. Ma'am, are you just saying just the Mexican flags are illegal? I really would like to engage your thought pattern. How did you get to this space? Are you saying all flags that aren't American flags are illegal? Would that mean that Confederate flags still, that are state flags, are they illegal? As a matter of fact, in your theory, all state flags must be illegal as well because they are not American flags. Man, we need to have a flag discussion. I bring you tidings. I hope you could come to Indisputable and the Bullpen to talk about it. It'll be fun, Karen. All right, Elliot, brother. Sometimes I can figure out where they're going. I don't even know because this is an endless argument if you believe that flags are now illegal or a symbol of a flag is what it is. It's now illegal in the United States of America if it's not an American flag.
Honestly, I mean, the level of creativity I got to give props for because, yeah, that's a new one for me. And I have a sneaking suspicion she's probably not accosting people with like, Italian flags or something like that. Right. I don't know. I could be wrong. Also, what's going on just in the day-to-day lives of these people? Are they not busy at all? Because I cannot imagine driving down the road and caring one way or as Karening one way or another what these particular flags are without just like, why don't you just focus on what you have to do? Because isn't the stereotype that they have in their minds of Mexicans that they're all just like lazy? But don't you have like a schedule? Don't you have like a job to go to? And instead you're just shouting at somebody and making up laws that no one's ever even heard of. Not even that they don't exist, but like just new ideas. I've never heard that in my life, that you can't have a flag up without an American flag up. I mean, I don't know if that's like a rule at Walgreens or something, but it baffles the mind.
And this is all happening during the age of Google. All right.
Yep.
Could have just looked it up. Hell of a thing. Okay, so uncovered teenage Carolyn Levitt gushed over Trump in 2016. Here it is.
We're going to start with Caroline Levitt, 18-year-old college freshman up the road at St. Anselm. She's got a 10 o'clock Spanish class, so we're going to let her go first.
Absolutely. Mr. Trump, as everyone knows, and as I personally appreciate, you're very honest and outspoken about a lot of different things. As my father would say, you call a spade a spade. However, many people criticize you for this, saying that you're merciless, ruthless, cold-hearted. What would you like to say to people who think you're too harsh to be the next president of the United States?
It's such a great question, and I had a woman the other day they say, Mr. Trump, I love you, I'm voting for you, but are you a nice enough person to be president? I said, you know what? I really am a nice person. I give tremendous amounts of money away. I love to help people. I love people. And you see from upstairs how many people showed up to see me. It's not going to be, though, this time about niceness. It's going to be about competence.
Yeah, that was a lot too. I would have preferred him to be mean and highly competent. All right, put it at full mass. According to Atlanta Black Star, President Donald Trump's press secretary, Ms. Leavitt, the youngest press secretary in U.S. history, at the age of 27, has been a MAGA groupie of Trump's since 18. Now we see qualification. This is a Trump qualification, okay? The online website, The List, recently unearthed the archived video of Ms. Leavitt at a, quote, Pancakes and Politics town hall. This was back in 2016. But she was an 18-year-old freshman at St. Anselm College in Manchester, this is New Hampshire. Before she even got her question out at the event, she heaped a bunch of praise on the then candidate. While attending college, Leavitt penned a piece for the college crier praising Trump while dissing left-leaning media outlets, according to The List. Quote, say what you want about Donald Trump. He is certainly not perfect, but he is without question running against not only a crooked candidate, but the crooked and biased media as well. Leavitt wrote, or, Trump told her to write that because it sounds like the same thing Trump says all the time. Now, referring to the Democratic presidential candidate, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. So this was the narrative, all right? So she's already echoing the same sentiment. Quote, the liberal media is unjust, unfair, and sometimes just plain old false, end quote. Okay. So Leavitt ran for office at 23 in New Hampshire's first congressional district just a few years after graduating as one of the first Gen Z congressional candidates. She lost that election amid a very crowded field of more veteran politicians. She was actually an old hand at the White House before she even embarked on the congressional campaign. She earned an internship in the Eisenhower Executive Office building, mailroom during Trump's first term, into a stint as assistant press secretary. In that role, according to Politico, she fought, quote, against the biased mainstream media. In 2020, after Trump lost re-election, she worked as a communications director for a New York rep. Now she's pulling all that experience into waking up every day and figuring out how she can spin the newest lie. While speaking to Fox News in the aftermath of Trump's strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, Leavitt said, quote, nobody knows what it means to accomplish peace through strength better than President Trump. He is the one who came up with that motto and that foreign policy doctrine via blue sky. This is false. The term peace through strength dates back to the Roman Empire. Ironically, in the article that was written in 2016, she wrote, quote, it becomes a bigger problem still when news channels begin to report inaccurate stories in order to preserve their own views and stands and process of doing so effectively obscure the truth. Ma'am, you have the job because he can control you. I actually feel bad for you because I think you authentically looked up to him and believed he was something that you know for surely he's not. You know he's not anymore. But what can you do? MAGA, support groups, advocacy. You got caught up in this whirlwind at 18. You're 27. You actually, and I believe you will end up doing the right thing. You actually have more life in front of you than behind you. You can still turn this thing around. I believe you were duped at a very young age. I think you were manipulated then and you're being manipulated now to the highest factor. Why would he do this? Why would he put you in such a position? And yet Levitt got caught doing just that March 2025 when she criticized U.S. District Judge James Bossberg for intervening in Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act, accusing him of sympathizing with the Democrats' cause. So she incorrectly claimed that the judge was first appointed by the Obama administration. This fit nicely with her narrative, but NBC reporter quickly pointed out that the judge was actually appointed by George W. Bush, and she was then flustered. How does a press secretary make that kind of mistake? In an era where you have a staff, a team, a chief of staff, an assistant chief of staff, you literally are the communications director. You have access to Google too. How do you make these mistakes? You only make these mistakes at that level if you're not the one writing the press releases, the speeches that you give, or the posts that you make. All right, Elliot, thoughts here?
Honestly, I had a hard time recognizing Caroline Levitt at first without the gold cross around her neck. But then once you started talking, like, oh, okay, that's who she is. And I think I am starting to realize that it's not, I thought it was a cross for Christianity. I think it's just a lowercase t, because this isn't the behavior of a press secretary. This is the behavior of a fan. And I think there's a real sycophantic thing going on with Caroline Levitt. She knows the drill. She knows what her assignment is. It's like Trump all the way at the top, and then everything else succumbs to that. And I also noticed that when she talked to him back when she was in college, she said, as my dad would say, he calls a spade a spade. Does she think her dad came up with the phrase calling a spade? Because that might explain some of these problems. But I don't know that I'm as optimistic as you are, Dr. Ritchie, about her kind of coming out of this, but I certainly hope that it happens. I just think that, when you see folks like this, they're in so deep and so much of their identity is tied to it that I worry that maybe she'll be entrenched in it forever. But who knows? Maybe not.
Yeah, the only reason why I provide a caveat for her is because the youth are impressionable, but can also be unpredictable when they stand up for themselves.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Folks that are already in it, they 50, 60, hell, they sold their soul a long time. All right, a man in crisis posed the question. He asks, hey, police, can you help? And he dies while in custody. Put it up for a mass. Very sad story. Black male, Baltimore, named Dante Melton, was pronounced dead hours after seeking medical help from police officers. His mother's demanding answers about how her son's request for help during a mental health crisis ended with his death at a hospital hours later. According to the report, Mr. Melton approached an officer at 9:40 p.m. That night, as the cop was sitting in his police cruiser, stopped at a traffic light at an intersection. Investigators noted Mr. Melton appeared to be suffering a mental health crisis. He repeatedly walked in the middle of the road several times as the officer was trying to speak to him. Melton pleaded for help but was denied after officers assumed he was fine. Quote, I've got a gentleman pulling on my doors asking for help, end quote, the officer said on dispatch. Quote, but he doesn't look like he needs help. The IID report states that the officer tried to restrain Melton for his own safety. When backup arrived, officers placed him in handcuffs, leg restraints. The responding officers then called an emergency medical team, but medics never showed up. Police called for medics at least twice, but dispatch audio revealed that Baltimore's computer-aided dispatch, their CAD system, which maintains a link or a line between the police and fire units, went down during Melton's crisis. Typically, there's a redundancy in the system. There's a backup for this. Police waited until 10:30 p.m. before deciding to rush Melton to the hospital themselves. At 3 a.m. on June 25th, the 31-year-old was pronounced dead. Authorities have not released the cause of death yet. We are waiting for that release. Melton's mother, Alicia Good, said that her son was struggling with seizures and a mood disorder and began using drugs to self-medicate. She said he checked himself into rehab 7 times in the last 10 years. That's because he knew he wanted better. Our system simply failed him. That's according to the Baltimore Beat. Shortly before he died, the mother noticed that his behavior was worsening. Just one day before his death, she filed a protective order which would notify police that her son was struggling with mental health issues. That's so that when they ran his name, mental health diagnosis comes up. It helps them understand what's happening with them. A judge denied the petition because Melton's substance abuse issues. Now, understand the contradiction in that order. A judge denied the petition because of substance abuse issues. But the APA will tell you that substance abuse is a mental health disease. I'm 10 years clean and sober. Haven't had a drink in 10 years. We were taught the same thing. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a disorder. Just arrest it, because you can do that. But that very doctrine, that notion, that diagnosis that is medically acceptable and accepted at any HR agency or division of your company around the world, this judge said, no, that actually disqualifies him from having a mental health issue. Quote, I stood in front of the judge in that courtroom with all those people there, and I said, listen, I'm telling you, yes, he has a drug problem. Yes, and everything else. But what I'm saying to you, Judge, is this time it's different. I was trying to follow the proper channels to have him evaluated or at least pulled off the street. That was the thing. And I was denied. You see, if you get a judge to say yes or something like that in the state of Georgia, it's called a 1013, where a family member can now have you basically committed for roughly 70 plus hours. It's to make sure that whatever you're dealing with in that moment doesn't become eternity, because you got 72 hours to think about it. Dante Melton's mother is now trying to find answers to the unanswered questions of her son's death. Once again, authorities have not released anything. Ms. Good said while Melton and her family have had positive and helpful encounters with police before, this time was different. She noted too many gaps in the account of the police response to her late son's mental crisis that need to be addressed. You have micro failures, or the microcosm of the situation. You have the macrocosm. You have the systemic failures, and then you have the personal biases. And they come together to create sometimes the worst outcome imaginable for a human being and their family. All right, Elliot, thoughts here?
I think you hit on something really great, which is that this is just a multi-pronged problem that will require a multi-pronged solution. I don't think there's many people who would disagree. There's a mental health crisis in this country that we are woefully ill prepared for. And when you have someone, for example, like Mom Donnie running for mayor in New York, who calls for there to be more of an investment in mental health resources to take this kind of responsibility away from a police department, I think something like that should be looked into. But even that, I think, won't really be enough, because this is, as you said, cultural. It is a policy thing. And I think that there's something going on with the demonization of people who have drug and alcohol problems. Like denying him based on the fact that he was using drugs, I think, is like not helping someone who's just been amputated because they're missing an arm. Like it is part and parcel of the same thing. It's a self-defeating argument. And this is definitely one of the more tragic stories I've heard recently, because there are things we could do to prevent this. And we have collectively decided that we're just going to, ignore it. And I think that's really infuriating.
Yeah, well said. Hopefully there's an update and we will follow this story. All right. The president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, the president, is really surprised that the president of Liberia can speak English, even though it's the official language of the country. Here it is.
Well, thank you. It's such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where? In Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. It's beautiful English.
Sure.
I have people at this table can't speak nearly as well.
Very
And
good,
they,
sir. Thank you.
Put it up for a man. Trump, you're going to be surprised with this one too, sir. English is not even America's official language. Somebody had to tell you. just we just dodged that one on that. We decided to let it go. Trump, do you talk to anybody, man? I mean, do you have somebody you can talk to about things like this before you show up? Because it's one thing you messing up America, all right? We'll deal with that. But damn, you doing this across the world? I know folk from Liberia. I don't want to talk to them about this. So yesterday, Trump. So this week, Trump hosted the Liberian president, Joseph Nyuma, and had leaders from other countries. This was the White House summit. Let me give you the history of English in Liberia. This is a very proud dynamic for Black folk in particular, because we understand the strength of Liberia and how they came into existence as a colony, as a force to be reckoned with. Okay, so Liberia was originally founded as a colony during the 19th century and settled by thousands of freed African American slaves, freeborn African Americans and African Caribbeans. It declared independence in 1847, modeled both its constitutional republic government and flag after the United States. That's why it's so similar. And the capital city of Monrovia was named in honor of James Monroe, U.S. president. English has been their official language from the beginning and was widely adopted for the economic benefits from being able to directly communicate with traders from the U.S. and Britain, further encouraged with the emergence of Liberian Creole, or Kalakwa, derived from the English word Kalikwa, a Creole dialect, which has served as the language bridge between the dozens of local native languages. It's kind of a melting pot. The dominance of English among Liberians has continued with successive generations to the modern day. Official government communications are conducted in English, as are the country schools, universities, all in English. Liberians confused after Trump's condescending praise about beautiful English. The man is so dumb. They assume he's smarter than he is, so they're just confused, right? They think it may be a compliment and the language barrier is there somehow, because Trump don't know good English. So Friday, Fode, chairman of the opposition to Congress of Democratic Change, Council of Patriots, this is a Liberian political group, said that while the remarks were typical, I'm sorry, y'all. While the remarks were typical of Trump's engagement with foreign leaders, what some saw as a condescending tone was amplified by the fact that the leaders were African. Quote, as a matter of fact, it also proves that the West is not taking us seriously as Africans, he said. President Trump was condescending. He was very disrespectful to the African leader. There has to be like an email that somebody can print and just put it in big letters and say, these are the important things, Trump. Something. Elliot, come on, man. You're president of the United States. You're hosting countries. Help me out, brother. How does this happen?
I mean, it is, it reminds me of just growing up in Florida and that particular cadence that these folks can hit that some say is condescending. I think that if you listen to Trump talking like that and you don't think it's condescending, you might be condescending, because that is just like cartoonish. My wife gets upset with me sometimes because I'll send her stuff on Instagram that is in the cringe category, because I can kind of get a little bit of sick satisfaction out of watching these videos. This is probably one of the cringier things I've seen Trump do in a while. It kind of almost makes your skin tingle, because it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion, and all you can do is sit there and wait for it to end. Kudos to just the patience that that gentleman had while he was being talked to that way, and hopefully, someone can talk to Trump and maybe get in his ear, and maybe tone down the compliments a little bit, because he's not good at it
at all. Yeah. Great advice. Okay. We have an update. Okay. Iranian MAGA mother detained by ICE still supports Trump, however. This is an interesting one. So put it up full mass. We're going to get into it. Now, typically, when we report on voters' remorse, there's remorse because Trump has done something to them or someone they love that they believe somehow would not happen. Well, this person, it's an interesting caveat to that notion. ICE detained a woman, but she still supports Trump despite his policies being responsible for her detainment. And that's a real cult supporter. Let's get into it. On June 30th, ICE agents arrested Arpina Masihi at her home in Diamond, California, while all four of her children, all born in the U.S., by the way, were at home. Despite the arrest and despite the potential deportation, the family still supports Trump and supports the immigration policy in particular. She issued a statement from the damn detention center. Quote, "He's doing the right thing because lots of these people don't deserve to be here," she told the BBC via the phone. From the detention center, she added, quote, "I will support him until the day I die. He's making America great again." End quote. 4 children, household, all born in the U.S. They did this in front of them. The BBC reported that she was convicted of burglary and grand theft in 2008, okay? A judge revoked her green card but allowed her to remain in the country because she maintained that as a Christian, the Iranian government might prosecute her. So this is an asylum claim, basically, or fear of persecution, religious persecution in particular. When ICE agents came to her house last month, she insisted she was allowed to be in the U.S. However, agents told her that her status has changed, obviously due to the new policy and their emphasis. Reportedly, the family does not blame Trump for the detainment. They blame Joe Biden for having the borders opened. Quote, "I don't blame Trump, I blame Biden," he told the BBC. It's his doing for open borders, but I believe in the system. All the good people will be released, and the ones that were bad will be sent back, end quote. They also told the BBC she was held in a freezing, brightly lit room with 28 other women for 3 days. The report said they survived on snacks and 1 bottle of water a day. She says the women huddling together for warmth and sleeping on the floor. You know, I can't even, there's nothing really to say of a moral value to stand up for others when you choose to not even stand up for yourself or your children. Stand up for the fact that your children they still deserve a parent, even if you don't believe other children deserve their parents. I mean, damn. So yeah, there's not much I can say to you. Elliot, thoughts?
Yeah, I think stories like this really make you want to pull your hair out a little bit. What comes to mind is there's a branch of psychology that stems from psychoanalytic theory called self-psychology, and it was developed by a guy named Heinz Kohut back in the 70s. And he came up with this idea of a self-object, which a self-object is usually a person, it can also be an experience, it can be an object, but it's anything that's not the subject. And it's part of the development of the individual. So all of us, when we're growing up, will have self-objects of various kinds, and they are needed as we develop a cohesive sense of self. It's sort of like outsourcing part of your psyche to another person. And so there's a form of a self-object called idealizing that can happen. It should happen with your parents, ideally, where as you're growing up, you think that they're the smartest people in the world because you haven't quite developed that sense of self yet. However, it can, throughout your development, things can go wrong, and you might end up growing up and still need a self-object. So when I see stories like this, it kind of reminds me of that, because I think that what's going on here is Trump functions in a way where he is necessary for these people's sense of self. And I don't think that that's a good or bad thing. I think it's unhealthy. I don't think that I think that it's so deep that it goes deeper than rationality, and it goes even deeper than their material well-being, because Trump for them is not a politician that they can either throw support behind or take it back away from. I think he functions as a sense of themselves, an extension of themselves. And so to sever that support is to sever off a part of themselves. And I think it's incredibly sad. I think it is emblematic of a certain portion of support that Trump gets, because he's become this symbolic figure for so many people. And the problem is when now these people's children might be, getting hurt, seeing things that they shouldn't need to be seeing. And instead of that being called out and them being supported in that, they're being told that, no, it's actually okay because, Trump is this omnipotent, all powerful figure in their lives. And I think that it speaks very much to a mental health issue that we have in this nation.
It is a fascinating review of the human psychological. It's a norming process. But you said something that I concur with. It's not really good or bad for the individual because they're kind of void of self-judgment on the thing. You can only weigh beneficial or non-beneficial, and I would hope somebody would weigh it's kind of non-beneficial for you to be taken away from your kids. And your kids be taken away from you.
You could say.
Yeah. We got more on the other side. Indisputable, stick and stay. Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked.
My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crump.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either. All right, welcome back. Listen, during the commercial break, I'm going to read one comment because we're pressed for time, but this had me howling. And it is from Snack Panther. Snack Panther says, English, MF, do you speak that? Priceless. Love it. Thank you for that. Okay. All right. Well, here we go. A white woman falsely accuses a black teen of stealing her wallet and just say, hey, listen, it had nothing to do with racial profiling. He just looked guilty. Here it is.
With the color of your skin.
Y'all can check the cameras and tell this lady that my son is not taking anything from her. Is she high or something? What is the problem here?
I have no idea. I was just called out here. That's all.
Yeah, I'm pulling the race card.
Pull the race card.
Yeah, because we're black.
Does it get you anywhere? I don't care what color you are. He looks guilty.
Guilty of what? Bitch, you better go. Oh.
bitch. You raised bad. I was raised bad? Shut dead ass. I am 15, have to deal with this dumb.
Put it full mass. You may have effectively advocated your position, madam, if you had not effectively advocated your actual position. He looks guilty. What? You're playing the race card. What? You just falsely accused someone of theft. Falsely, it's your fault. You did that. It's a black teenager. According to Atlanta Black Star, heated confrontation in a Memphis Walmart parking lot involved a white woman falsely accusing a black teenager of stealing her wallet, denying that her accusation was racially motivated, but saying, quote, he looked guilty. The boy's mother, Miss Penny Thompson, posted the video to her TikTok page. We got the background. So Thompson asked the workers to check the store surveillance cameras to prove her 15-year-old son did not steal anything. While accusing the woman of making racially motivated allegations, the woman insists that her accusation has nothing to do with skin color, but provides no evidence proving that the teen stole the wallet. Quote, I don't care what color you are. He looked guilty. End quote. The woman yells. The woman then tells a man in the truck that she's waiting for Thompson to hit her. The back and forth continues, and Thompson continues to hurl heated barbs, but the woman continues to assert that the child is a thief. Quote, you can act like it's because you're black, but it's not. He knows he's guilty, end quote, the woman states. At that point, the teen interjects and accuses the woman of race baiting. The video ends after the woman is heard reciting the letters on the license plate of a car belonging to Miss Thompson and her son. It's unclear how the incident ended, but Thompson confirmed that the woman called the police. In one comment posted under the video, she also criticized the store employees who responded to the situation, stating they could have done more to help. Quote, we were just shopping and harassed. We got a 55-inch TV. Nobody even helped us until the Karen started showing out. Then we had an entire audience in the parking lot, end quote. Thompson wrote, it's a criminal offense to make a false police report. Those employees could have helped a lot more. Madam, I agree with you. They were too busy being entertained, perhaps. And to the young man, to your son, to the young teenager who went through that, I'm sorry you went through that, young man. Sorry you had that experience. Utilize it as strength to be the catalyst to what you choose to do to correct these problems and societal ills we face today. All right, Elliot, thoughts?
I'm always fascinated by the immediate denial of any racism, followed promptly by you looked guilty. Makes English, do they speak it? Because they might want to look up the word racism. That is kind of a big part of it. And yeah, this whole kind of situation where you have a young kid. I mean, you grow up experiencing that. And how does that make you feel? You end up going through your whole life wondering if people are side-eyeing you and going to pick a fight with you randomly and accuse you of something that you didn't do, when all you wanted to do was get your 55-inch TV and go watch Netflix. Goodness gracious.
Do teenage stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I got something for you. Ladies and gentlemen, yep, I wish you Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off! I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life. What? I said you can always be somewhere else. Okay, I need to release your manager right now. She's going to say the same thing. I don't care. Then I want the number of your corporate. If you're picking the stupid lady that doesn't even freaking speak English. If you don't leave, I'm going to call the police. Go ahead. You're being racist, okay? That's racist. Okay, you don't do that, okay? So if you don't leave, I'm gonna call the police. I'm gonna tell them that you're no longer coming here, okay? You're no longer welcome. Because that was completely racist, okay? Don't ever say that to anybody else that, works twice as hard as anybody else, okay? That is racist, man. You're with your manager, but she just needs peace. Honestly, your manager. She's in a phone call. Okay, I'm calling the police if you don't think so. Okay, call the police.
Hey, excuse me, you're making my lunch unpleasant now? You're making my lunch unpleasant. You have to.
I just don't want to hear.
I don't want to hear you.
Beautiful mass. Let me first highlight my admiration and respect for the leadership of this Carl Jr. Employee who provided significant light. Light is information. It is truth. Who provided significant context and did it in a way that seemed to really honor the other person's humanity, even though they were not honoring humanity themselves. Last night, I had the great privilege of serving as the moderator for the King Center. Dr. Bernice A. King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, and many others. We had a Black and Brown coalition. And we talked about humanity first, and how do we operate in today's landscape where everything is something other than humanity. You know, today it's undocumented worker or immigration, where your documentation, well, the founding of this nation started like that. Where are your freedom papers? You have to have humanity infused in you by some type of governmental authority, typically run by folks that are white and rich. So that is in the DNA. That doesn't mean we cannot nurture beyond the nature. And what this employee did is a nurture beyond the nature. Thank you for doing it the way you did it. All right? And that's the reason why I focused on you rather than the ignorant Karen. All right, Elliot, thoughts here, brother?
Similar, Dr. Ritchie. I don't want to focus too much on her because I don't think I'll say anything overly appropriate, but I do think this is an excellent playbook for how to deal with these kinds of situations. I will say it's refreshing to hear this woman just admit outright that what she was saying is racist, rather than other people we've seen who suddenly become sinless the moment that that kind of accusation gets thrown around. The self-awareness to know that, it is racist is sad, but at least it's true. And the guy handling it did it perfectly. I think everyone in that restaurant seemed to handle it very well. And you can kind of see, I think, her demeanor change when she realizes that she's actually in the world and that people are seeing her. And it's almost like a deflation that happens. And I think that deflation is a result of what you're talking about, of that kind of like, let me just stay calm and explain this to you. And it's not argumentative. It's not shaming. It's just going, what you're doing here is racist. And if you keep doing it, we're going to call the cops. And I don't know that I could have remained that calm. So good for him.
Yeah, that's right. That is right, brother. That's why it takes real strength to do what he did. Okay. Ironically, so a seafood restaurant tells the only the black customers to prepay for their meals. There's a video going viral. We're going to talk about it. Here it is.
No, but what's the difference? Because they didn't pay first is what we're trying to say. So what's the difference between us and them? Why didn't they pay first?
So they didn't have to pay their food.
That's all we're asking. Could you answer that question, please?
They didn't have to pay their food.
So you guys are discriminating pretty much.
So why didn't they have to pay?
No, so why?
But they didn't pay.
Why didn't they pay first? Why didn't they pay first? Why do we have to pay first and they didn't pay first? Could you please answer that?
I ate here before.
Could you just answer that?
They didn't have to pay first last time we ate here. I ate here before. When I was with my girlfriend and we ate here and I paid after. So why do we have to pay now? We could pay, that's the thing. But we feel like you're obviously feel some type of way for us to give us a check before we eat.
You think that we're gonna not pay?
That's what you think.
No, sometimes we need to pay first.
No,
sometimes.
It's not no sometimes.
Why sometimes?
We just something.
Why?
But why?
Man,
we want to know why.
Is it because we're black?
You got to do better. And the only way we're going to get better is have a tough conversation or two. These young men were right. They were right. They needed to ask the question that many would have avoided and say, here, take money. I don't even I won't come back. But they did something else. They're helping us to see ourselves. There's no transformation without acknowledgement. There's no acknowledgement without confrontation. Confrontation doesn't have to be mean-spirited, but it has to happen. Because truly we just confront what's in us. So they can see what's happening because we've all have had our biases and continue to have them. We have to consciously work against them. Don't lie and say, I don't see color. That means you don't see culture. You don't see pattern. You don't see pain. You don't see power. Come on, man. It's insane. So let's put them up full mask. So this video is going viral, all right? Black diners at a seafood restaurant in California. They were allegedly asked to pay prior to eating their food. They had eaten at the restaurant before. Reportedly, no one else was being asked to pay for their meal ahead of time. Now, after the interaction racked up over 7 million views, the men uploaded a response explaining in more detail what happened. Here it is.
And he gives us the menus, and we place our order. And after we place our order, he comes with the check. And we're not thinking nothing of the check. We're just chilling, like still drinking our waters. And he tells us, he comes back and he tells us before they start making our food that
we have to pay
for our order.
And mind you, I have been to this establishment a couple of times with a girl, and I never had to do that before. So obviously I asked if that was like a change in their policy. It doesn't feel comfortable just going to somewhere that you're gonna feel like you want to eat and you just don't feel welcomed. Obviously we left after the fact, but yeah, all being said, thank you guys so much for having our backs. I hope it doesn't happen to anybody else, because if this have happened to you guys, you definitely will feel like how we're coming from. I just hope that somehow that issue gets resolved, regardless of us getting anything from it, because that's not what we want. We wanted a sincere apology and an answer of why, but they have yet to provide that for us. So
very proud of these young light workers who refused to be denied, and they were not disrespectful. They were respectful the entire time. They posed the relevant question. And just for those who are keeping record of statutory law, it's called public accommodations. And under the dynamic of public accommodations, you cannot treat one set of people differently than you treat another if your building is accessible to the public for commerce. You will be in violation of public accommodations. All right, dear brother, thoughts?
And props to those guys, and good for them for filming it and getting it, I think, on the internet. It makes me thankful that we live in a world right now where there's at least a modicum more of accountability in this situation. The restaurant should apologize. I don't understand when you have something like this going viral, how much effort it would take to admit, that there was some wrongdoing here. And I think what I'm most curious about is what was going on with that woman in her mind, because with the fact that there hasn't been an apology, it makes me wonder if this is kind of a top-down, order. And she looked pained, and I'm not, trying to make her the victim here, because that's not the case at all. But I do wonder if there was sort of a clash happening internally when she maybe realized that this was going on. And so I hope at least maybe she took some time to reflect, but who knows?
Man, listen, and I understand your point, because a lot of times you'll see an upper management call, middle management has to carry it out, and now you're in this quagmire. So yeah, reflection on all levels. All right, a mother rescues her 6-year-old son from an attempted kidnapping in New York. Put it up, full mass. Unbelievable. But it happened. A 6-year-old Brooklyn child was injured on Sunday night after a man wearing a fez allegedly tried to abduct him on a busy sidewalk, Coney Island. That's according to police and witnesses. The incident occurred around 9:56 p.m. near the intersection of Surf Avenue and Stillwell Avenue in Brooklyn. Police said the suspect, 36-year-old Jonathan Robolino, grabbed the child off the sidewalk and attempted to flee with him. The child, identified as Rashem Gant, was later treated at Coney Island Hospital for minor injuries and listed in stable condition, thankfully, officials said, according to the New York Post. Video obtained by Freedom News shows a man dressed in all black, including a tall fez style or chef's hat, scooping the child up with one arm as he trailed behind his parents. That's why we keep our babies in front of us, because of clowns like this. The footage shows the suspect tossing the child to the ground once the parents gave chase. Quote, "I see this man holding my son like a football, a complete stranger," says Sharon Robinson, the boy's mother. If Rara hadn't made that loud scream, the man would have taken him and done whatever he wanted to do with him. Maybe take him under the boardwalk and violate him, or worse, kill him. Thankfully, that did not happen. Robinson said the family had spent the evening enjoying the beach and amusement park before the incident. The young Gant was running ahead while Robinson was buying popcorn, and the suspect allegedly seized him. Quote, "I guess by flinging him down, he must have thought I was not going to run to him," Robinson said, adding, "I was." The footage shows both parents running after Robolino, who fled into the street as cars passed through the intersection. Chase ended when Robinson pushed him down near the It's Sugar candy store. Quote, "This man's on the ground for 2 minutes without anyone handcuffing him," she said. Police briefly restrained Robinson before witnesses clarified the situation. Isn't that something? Officers from the nearby post then took Robolino into custody, according to police sources. The child from Queens was inconsolable after the incident, Robinson said. Quote, "When they got to the emergency room, he was still crying," she said. "We didn't do anything to this man. We never saw this man before, ever." Robinson called for the maximum penalty. Quote, "I want full charges on him. I want him to have a felony." Robolino was charged with assault and attempted kidnapping. You know, somebody that would do that to a child, to a family, is likely doing it by a strategy, watching, saw an opportunity, may have attempted it before. But this is the person that if a prosecutor wants to make an example out of somebody, stop using 18-year-olds who are making immature decisions. How about this guy? If you want to make an example out of someone, make an example out of this guy. All right? All right. Elliot, thoughts here?
Not many. I think it's just absolutely terrifying. Growing up, this is the kind of story I heard about quite a bit. My folks were very protective, sometimes to the point they got criticized for it. But looking at stories like this, I don't blame them. I cannot imagine. I think that if I was a parent in that situation, the anger that would take over would be pretty phenomenal. And so wish him the best. And I hope this guy stays behind bars for a very long time.
Yep, same here. Dear brother, always great to have your analysis on the program. Tell people how they can follow you, check out your great work.
Oh, you can check me out at Instagram.com/Elliot Morgan, or you can check me out on Rebel HQ, where I make videos once a week. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you, dear brother. Until next week. All right, remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.